can participate in. And with that, I'm really here as someone who's probably more ignorant and less technical than other people on the call, but really, really excited to absorb the information here and do whatever good I can with it. So, with that, I just want to thank you guys, and I'll pass the baton over to Amari for an introduction.
Thank you, Lazar. That was great.
You're muted, Amari. I see you talking.
All right. Yes, there you go. Yeah, I'm Amari. I'm here in Detroit, Michigan. I'm about maybe 7-8 months into making a pivot from a past career in teaching to get into this tech industry, specifically coding. I'm learning JavaScript, HTML, these things, front-end development. That's kind of like I want my next chunk of life to involve that as a focus. And my interest in this Web3 stuff, I just kind of have this feeling. Part of it is just like kind of an intuition that says, I remember the late 90s when email was becoming a thing, and when these predictions were being made about what the web was going to be, how important it was going to be, and how critical. And fast forward to today, it's like, look around, So I feel like this Web3 technology, I'm trying to figure out why it's important. And so I'm just exploring everybody talking about it. But I think a lot of what I see is going to be important for this, the future. I think the problem is going to be a problem of trust. And I think this blockchain answers some of those problems in terms of authenticating information, sources, who is actually saying this thing on a government level, a public level, on a personal level. And I think that's going to be important. I'm interested in private networks, like people being able to create their own, kind of like in corporations, basically, I guess is how I see it with this technology. Like I've thought about applying it to education and learning communities where you may have a DAO has students in it, where somehow there's some kind of reputation built around progress in education, some kind of self-incentivizing structure. I mean, all kind of thoughts about it. So I'm just broadly interested in how it might be affecting broader society and like, for the public good too. That's how is this going to be applied in a way that's useful? So that's, why I'm here.
Great. Thank you, Amar. That was great to hear. There's a ton to dig into, and we don't intend this to be a straight lecture. I mean, Omar has a short presentation that will raise even more great questions. I was able to reach him by phone recently, so he'll join us momentarily. But there's a ton to dig into, and I'll probably bring up many of the things that Lazar and you brought up, Amari, just now. Both public goods, DAOs, DAOs, decentralized autonomous organizations, education. I'm a teacher. This meetup is mostly based around learning, so that's a key part of my interest as well. And especially in Detroit, where I feel like people are more open to new systems because they feel like the existing systems and governments and things have kind of let them down, which is fair. I mean, there's like a lot of there's a lot of burnout, but there's also a lot of inspiration, a lot of energy, which I like. And so, yeah, I look forward to keep exploring these topics with everyone, not just today, but especially if you're in Detroit, please stay in touch. We meet every 2 weeks, probably more frequently in the future. We have a house, which I'm attempting to turn over to a DAO right now. So the title is in my name, but I'm setting up a cooperative, a collective. It's an LLC right now, and gathering people who are interested in being trustees and sort of helping to govern it. And there's a legal part, which is purely through documents. Like I spent yesterday, probably several hours working on coding up like what are the valid actions this trust can take. And it was very code-like. I'm a programmer, so I wrote this legal contract as if I were a programmer, and I was defining concepts and who could act and what rights they had, and in a very specific way, which we have lawyers working with the Detroit Justice Center, which is a group of pro bono lawyers who work with cooperatives and nonprofits for social goods, for public goods like this. So they give their services for free. We have their attention probably every few weeks or so, working towards this legal agreement. So there's going to be a legal part, and there's going to be a code part. And I hope this is interesting to other people, but in the Web3 space, when I started, the two pre-crypto winter and pre-crypto first bubble in 2015 and 16, people were interested in this as being like a new way of democracy, like a new way where people can trust each other. Before you shouldn't trust random strangers on the internet, but now you have a set of rules and code that say how you can trust each other, disallowing bad actions, allowing and incentivizing good actions. But there has to be, the phrase back then was called code is law. So it'd be like whatever is on the blockchain, whatever the code is, that is what's true forever. And if it happens to allow, a bunch of anonymous anons, as they're called, a bunch of random hackers on the internet to steal your money or to launder it or to participate in all these unsavory activities, which most people don't want to be associated with, well, that's what the code allows. And, everyone should be allowed their privacy. And I was very far in that camp. I was like, oh yeah, you should use this to avoid taxes, and the government is not spending our money well. And those concerns, still exist. But now I'm like, if you want to make a difference in the world, you have to be a respectable citizen. I mean, you have to pay the appropriate amount of taxes. You benefit from living in this country where you're free to speak your mind. And you don't want to be spending your energy, at least like now, some of you have families. I know for sure Lazar has a beautiful family, a beautiful new daughter. And I know Amari has kids as well. And so you have contributed to society and want to raise and bring up your kids in a world and set a good example. You want to, and I'm wanting to also do that too, to start a family and be an example. But I have nieces and nephews and also younger friends who, they pay attention to what their elders are doing. And if they see you trying to avoid taxes and trying to abscond to the Cayman Islands or Singapore or Puerto Rico or something, we can't all do that. So it's not the kind of world I want to live in. So my perspective has changed. And now there's the code part, which, I actually don't write that much code anymore. But I definitely try to teach and enable other people to use that path for financial independence and to create some good in the world. And then also the legal part, which is what's on file with the government. How do you cooperate with the government and show them that Web3 and cryptocurrencies and blockchain is something to welcome and is an empowering technology and is one that can reinforce all the good things that governments want, right? Like governments want citizens who are stable, who like pay property taxes, and who can raise families and sort of carry on these values for carry on things like if you value free speech, like in our society, we definitely do. Not all countries equally do around the world, but the government here also wants to continue people who value free speech. And the US government, like President Biden recently signed an executive order saying that the government was going to explore central bank digital currencies, like ways to use Web3 technologies in a way that sort of match the current United States government's priorities. And you may not agree with all the priorities. I certainly don't, and we're free to disagree, which is the great thing about our democracy, our democratic republic. But the fact that they're open to it means that they're not going to be, out there openly prosecuting anyone who mentions Web3 and cryptocurrency. And so that's a big legitimization of the space. So I'm excited about that. It also means that there are more jobs, more companies will come back to the US. Omer and Fireblocks are a Israeli company, and there's a great scene over there, a great startup scene that supports blockchain innovation. And I think that their government has much earlier on been open and said like they're not going to sort of have a witch hunt and openly prosecute all cryptocurrencies. And in the US now is trying to have a similar hospitable environment. So hopefully more companies will come back. Maybe Fireblocks will open a United States office if they don't have one already. They are hiring. Hey, Omer.
We are. Hey.
Thank you. That is wonderful to hear. And so I'll wind down my rant, but I was just talking about how the U.S. president.
Yeah, I was here since you started talking. I thought you saw me, but I didn't want to interrupt. So yeah.
Yeah. So CBDC, central bank digital currencies, are a path into the future, and maybe they'll make their own. Maybe they will try and cooperate with like USD coin, which is issued by Circle that got bought by Coinbase recently, or with DAI, which is like the truly decentralized technology, or these other. I mean, there are a lot of great products that are related in this space, like fixed income assets. Reflexer Labs has released this stable-ish coin called Rye, and all of these things can be held with a Fireblocks, multi-party computation wallet. And that's like an area which our speaker today, we're very honored to have him. He has worked for this company. I'm not sure when, at least for the last several months, but it's definitely an exciting time. I know they closed, and I'm going to brag about them a little bit. So Omer, so hopefully this you'll allow me.
I don't like to brag, so you do that for me.
Okay, well, so Fireblocks recently closed on, I believe, a Series E round, so on venture capital. The more rounds you last to, the more promise people see in your product, and most of the rounds, increase the value of the company each time. It could also be in a bubble, and we all should reserve the right to be skeptical, but it's still it's a sign of movement. And so the Series E round is for, I believe, $550 million, and that's substantial. And that probably leads to a lot of analysts around the world saying that the market for custodial assets, or actually, I'll ask you about the distinction between non-custodial and custodial soon, but it's many people have problems with wallets, right? Like you've got 99 problems, and probably all of them are wallet problems. And they're hard to use. People don't know how to on-ramp to this system. They lose their private keys, they lose their passwords. They feel like a company, right now a bank, if you lose your password, you write the bank, and the bank cares about customer service, and they will help you. And so what I imagine Fireblocks, the promise of it is that like they also, as much as possible in this decentralized Wild West frontier, are a trusted company. They will help you. They do have the technology for your safety and to keep your assets safe, but they also let you have other things that you may care about, like privacy, censorship-proof transactions. And well, I'll stop there. And everyone, I'm very pleased to welcome Omer all the way from Tel Aviv, who will tell us about his work at Fireblocks and in the Web3 space and anything else you may be curious about. So thank you.
Thanks, Paul. It's really nice seeing you again. I think the last time we met was a while ago when I visited you in Brooklyn. So yeah, thanks everyone for having me. And I'd like to just a quick thought about what Paul said at the beginning, where he was like more of a, if I can do it, then like, if it's technically possible, then I'm allowed to do it. And then moving, kind of to the opposite side of, seeing how this can benefit. And I think for me, this is the greatest, testament to blockchain technologies, is that it in and of itself doesn't have an opinion, and it's just a technology that you decide what to do with it, right? Because we do have on the one side, it's from one side, it's the libertarian utopia, right? I mean, take what you can, if people get squashed on the way, then it's it's their fault, and they should learn. And we saw the ICO bubble and all these rug pulls and kind of scam, exit scams and things like that, which is like, I lost my money. Well, boohoo, you can't cry to anyone because it's not regulated, and you should have known. You have responsibility as an adult that puts money inside, right? So there's like one end of it, which is very like libertarian in a way. And then from the other end of it, you have companies that actually use blockchain to do stuff like UBIs, like universal basic income, and things that are very on the on the other edge, like very socialist, very communist in a way. So I think it's a good it's a good testament for this technology. It can serve both sides. Not necessarily that I kind of condone, but still, it's like it's a proof that it's a technology, right? And it's not biased in and of itself as a technology. So I think it's a great time to see it, and a great time to be luckily for me kind of into it. I'll give a little bit of background about myself. So I'm almost 37 years old. I have a wife and 3 kids. I live in Tel Aviv. I was born and raised here in Israel. I was a computer science major, started coding. I was more of an entrepreneurial type. So I started out with my own startups, or being like the first employee in other startups. And I actually met Paul when I did my previous startup, which I founded, that started with something along the lines of crowdfunding for real estate. So letting everyone have a small piece of a construction of a new building, specifically in kind of high demand areas such as Manhattan. Then later on, we kind of did a pivot and said, "Oh, wouldn't it be great if people got some tokens for their private equity, and these tokens can be later on traded." So a little bit like the stock market, but for regulated, compliant, everything. So kind of taking a building and kind of tokenizing it on the blockchain, making it traded, and providing some liquidity to these private equities, which usually are just illiquid. And it was a very valiant attempt, but we decided to shut that down because it was premature. It's even premature today, although a lot of like banks are talking about how they can tokenize their own real estate, just in terms of having that transfer to under international banks, which is much easier or much cheaper than going through alternative routes. But for the consumer or the mass market, there is still a long way to go. So I joined Fireblocks 4 months ago as a product director in the DeFi and NFT space, which was later we found out that it's more like everything Web3. And so, yeah, we're kind of, I wouldn't say pivoting, but rebranding it as more of a Web3 approach. And I would say, from my, I'll first of all say what Fireblocks does, right? So maybe that would make a little bit of sense. So Fireblocks is a technology provider. We're a SaaS company, basically. What we do is we provide blockchain infrastructure in a way. So our core product is a wallet, is an MPC CMP wallet. CMP is just the initials of the guys that worked on the specific algorithm or the specific flavor of an algorithm. For those of you who don't know what MPC is multi-party computation. Essentially, I don't know much about it. I'm not a cryptographer. Israel is huge on cryptography, by the way. It's like one of our main exports is cryptography, all the RSA and things that you use, like these open source tools that you use. Okay, I'll just create a key. Basically, these are like all algorithms that Israeli cryptographers are part of it. Basically, multi-party computation is a way for 3 different parties to compute together something without revealing their input. Okay, so I can, it's a little bit hard to grasp, but I can make a calculation. I can prove to you that that calculation is correct, but I don't have to show you with what I calculated that, right? So in the crypto blockchain space, right, everyone has their private key. Now, let's rewind a little bit into, I'd say, Fireblocks is not even 4 years old, right, this company. So, let's take 5 years ago. If you were a hedge fund dealing with crypto, you'd have a wallet, and that wallet had a private key. And what you would do, you'd need your traders to exchange Bitcoin or Ethereum or whatever they wanted to do, and they needed access to the wallet. So you would probably hand them down the private key, and that's a single source of failure, because someone can steal that key. Not mentioning that if he doesn't steal it, he can still steal the money, right? He can still take the money away, transfer it to wherever. Then you have multi-sig solutions and things like that. But what Fireblocks did is they took this private key, right, and it broke it into 3 shards, And then Fireblocks keeps 2 of the shards, and the client keeps 1 of those shards. And every time that something needs to be transferred, initiated by the customer, we basically sign it with our shards. Each shard is kept in an enclave in a very secure cloud location, and the client's shard, and they all sign together without knowing each other, without any party revealing their shard for that computation. So you can basically sign with your private key, okay? All your private key signs the same way that you have it all together in your personal wallet, but it's compiled out of 3 different calculations from 3 different shards, and neither party knows what the other shards are. So basically, you can sign, but no one knows, no party knows, so you don't have a single point of failure. On top of that, if it makes sense what I said, right? It's like a very high level, because I don't know any lower level on that end, but you can ask and I can get some answers. The cryptographers are the guys that you go in and I look at the whiteboard that they drew and I'm like, yeah, I have no idea what you did here. And then what we did on top of that is we actually have a policy engine. So the same ways in the bank where you can define, okay, any trader can do transactions up to a certain amount of USD value. And above that, you'll need 2 people to sign. And above that, you need 5 people, or in transactions above 1 million USD, you need the CEO to actually sign, right? So we have a policy engine that basically the client set up, and they say what they want to do, what are their internal processes, what are their internal policies. We make that on top of all the signature processes on top of any transaction on any blockchain, and then allow them to just act as if this were a bank-like solution. So we allow them the ease of mind that no one can just run off with the keys. No one can just sign anything into any transaction. It's all with their policy. And yeah, we have many more features, but basically we allow them to safely and easily transact over blockchains. We currently support, I think, 27 different blockchains and thousands of coins and tokens, obviously. And towards the end of 2020, I was still not in a company. There was a movement towards DeFi. So I don't know how familiar you are with DeFi, decentralized finance. I'm taking a guess that you somewhat are. But basically, I would say very, very generally, and I might be criminally oversimplifying this, but DeFi, I would say, is, instead of transacting with a central third party, is basically transacting with code that is deployed over the blockchain, right? So and you have to have certain tools to do that. So we developed our own browser extension that is based off of MetaMask, and we integrate. We really big proponents of Wallet Connect. So scan a QR code, connect to your wallet, and do any transaction that you like. And that marked our start into dealing with Web3. And I would say that's basically, I don't know, that's like an intro to what Fireblocks does. But it's really important to understand that what we are is we're an infrastructure company. Meaning, when we say that we are a custody solution, it really means we're a custodian solution. Means that a custodian can come to us and build their business on top of the Fireblocks backend, on top of the Fireblocks infrastructure, because they, as I've said, because they keep one of the shards, we can never initiate a transaction which they did not sign, right? So we are never in control of the funds. We are never in control of the digital asset, basically. And if our client doesn't want anything to be transferred, nothing can be transferred because we don't have the entire private key. We cannot sign a loan on transactions, right? It's only like a joint signature between us. So we are never in control. No one can tell us, oh, you know what? I don't know. The government can't knock on our door and say, hey, guys, we're confiscating all these funds and send them to, I don't know, this address. We cannot. I mean, if our customer doesn't sign, then we can't do basically anything with those funds. That's why we're not a custodian, because a custodian basically is the one that transacts on your behalf, right? They do the actual actions based on what you told them to do, right? If you tell your bank, you know what, I will transfer Paul $200, then I need to tell him, and they actually make the transfer. I just sign it internally for them to later say, hey, you know what, he signed this this transaction, right? So it's a little bit different. So yeah, and we currently power some of the world's biggest neobanks when they deal with crypto. So companies such as Revolut and Robinhood and Celsius and eToro, these are all companies that their actual blockchain infrastructure runs on Fireblocks. There are a lot more. And we're also very big in the hedge fund scene and funds in general. Bank of New York Mellon is one of our main investors. So we are strategically working with them in order to execute their I'd say blockchain crypto strategy on top of our infrastructure. So it's very, very, very exciting. From the one hand, you have banks, traditional, very slow, but very forward thinking, still very slow. And from the other hand, you have those crypto DeFi hedge funds that, they do things that are, they're chasing yield. So they do like yield farming, which is kind of the equivalent of high frequency trading in the DeFi space. So it's a very, very large spectrum of companies. We don't cater for consumers. So we're only a B2B company. But as I've said, since we power these very, very big consumer brands, then, you get to use, if you're one of the clients of, Robinhood or Revolut or Celsius and so on and so forth, you are actually using our technology probably without even knowing it. Does that make sense in any way?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Omer. That was a great and thorough introduction, and I was taking notes. Good, for sure. That brings up a lot of great questions. And I know you had some slides. You had some great presentation but that was just like a ground. That was partly about Fireblocks, but just about Web3 and decentralized finance, and just like basic terminology about wallets in general. And so I think that was incredibly useful. I will let others go first if it brings up questions. And then I also wanted to say to Victor, I'm sorry we didn't get to your introduction, but after we sort of reach, I say like we'll cover some questions about what Omer just discussed now. We'd love to hear from you, Victor, if you'd like to share how you found about the meetup and what your interests are in the Web3 space. And then if that's okay with you, Omer, we can sort of at some point transition to the slides as another jumping off point, more rich question.
Sure.
Great. So does anyone have questions about wallets, either custodial or non-custodial or multi-party computation or Fireblocks in general, or anything that Omer has just told us about?
Yeah. I'm kind of curious. I've been hearing Web3 thrown around a lot. And I think have a little bit of a grasp of what that is, but I wonder if you could expand on that a little bit more. You know,
Sure.
I've heard some people refer to it as just a decentralized network
Internet.
of information and interaction, but is it DeFi? Is it, exactly does it mean Web3?
Okay, so yeah, it's like I would say there's a lot of ambiguity, and rightly so, right? This ambiguity, because if I asked you what's the internet, right, you couldn't really say, in one sentence what's the internet, right? It's a way to transact, to communicate, across across space, but it's like really, is it the architecture? Is it the use cases that it fills? Is it like, it's hard to kind of, take everything in and say, this is it. So I think the same way with Web3, people say it and mean a lot of different things when they say it. I think the broadest thing that I would say is that in a way, Web3 is taking ownership of your data in a way, right? So if you think about it, if you look at the Web2 space, right, where we are right now, is that you have a lot of participants that can do peer-to-peer communication. The data is then stored on centralized databases and servers, and then no one, like, you don't really, unless the things that you have on your computer, which rarely are a part of the internet, you don't basically own anything, right? You don't own your data. It might, or you don't, I wouldn't say own, because legally you might own some of this data, but it's not yours. It sits, if someone decides to drop a database table or to format, these servers, then you lose all that data, right? I mean, if Facebook basically closes your account and deletes your data, you don't have any more Facebook data, or Twitter the same way, right? Or LinkedIn, or wherever, whatever social network, or even your email. If you're on Gmail, or, have a cloud provider for that. And the vision for Web3 is basically owning all of that without anyone else having, censorship rights over your data. And that expands to a lot of different fields in terms of Web3. It spans to identity, and privacy, and money, obviously, which is kind of the wallets. The start of the blockchain is was the kind of first component of that. So I think, in a way, what we need to get, in a way, or understand, is that Web3 is all about, you have your entity, and that entity saves all that data, and that entity can transact with other entities. So it's a little bit, vague, okay, but let's take a concrete example, right? Let's take, and obviously the most obvious one is money, right? If you had two choices, you have basically two choices when it comes to money. Let's not talk about crypto, but talk about, let's say, traditional finances, right? You either keep it for yourself in the form of a coin or bills, and that it's physically, you own it, or you put it in a bank where you kind of still own it, but it's not yours, right? I mean, it's like, if they decide to take that money or to expunge that database, then you lose your money because it's saved somewhere in some database. And crypto and blockchain technologies actually allowed you to own your money in a way that is, I'd say, censorship resistant, and got you at least have a very strong feeling that you own what you own, and no one can touch it, right? Sometimes even not yourself, because you forgot the password or the passphrases or the seeds, but that's a different story. But it's still like, it's yours. No one can touch it. ever. No one can come in and claim it, right? I mean, on this space, right? In this space, unless they come in, they barge through the door, hold you at gunpoint and say, reveal your passphrase, give us your private key, and your money belongs to us, which they can do in the traditional space as well. But it's like, and it's but obviously, and it's anonymous, right? So no one knows exactly that this belongs to you, as opposed to the traditional finance route, where probably they know it's you because you went through processes of a KYC and AML, which is know your customer, and anti-money laundering. So think that example of like money, which is crypto, but with everything that you digitally own, right? It can be anything that you digitally own. If you keep that inside the wallet and can use that to transact freely with smart contracts applications, then it's a different game, right? It's like you can take your data and move it somewhere else, or you are the one that can decide if that data can be sold later on. No one can see it except you, and then you can actually like transact with it to other companies, right? So you can really take that and put that into the extreme, and say my wallet is myself and whatever I own, and I can digitally transact with it. So again, like it's very crazy to think about that. We're not in that phase yet, and not even close, I would say. It will take a few, I think like 5 to 10 years to get to that point, maybe for focused. But it's like giving you back the power on the thing that you digitally own, including identity, including privacy, including data. Everything is yours and not someone else's.
Thanks, Omer. I think Amari had his hand up for a question.
Sure.
Amari, would you like to?
Yeah. Yeah, maybe you could just explain a bit about kind of a high level about the difference between custodial and non-custodial wallets. I hear
Sure.
that a lot clear on it, what that means.
Right. So custodial wallet means that you have a wallet, but whoever custodies it is not you, right? So you have a company, a third party that actually manages your private key, your wallet, right? And you just come in, you probably do like an email and password and maybe a 2-factor authentication, but you don't directly deal with your wallet. Your wallet is kept by someone else. So let's say it's very much like your, as I've said, like your bank account, where you only have the username and password, but you don't own the actual machine that does the transaction, right? You don't really own it. So you go and by the way, there's nothing wrong with with a custodial wallet or a non-custodial wallet. It's just whatever your preference are in terms of usability, in terms of user experience, right? Not in order to reach mass market, I believe that having people deal with like their private keys and their seed phrases and things like that is very, very complicated. And if they lose their private key, then they lost all their money, right? So people don't want to take that risk. What they will do is they will go to a certified custodian, a company that has the legal ability to hold funds on behalf of someone else, right? So these are bank-like solutions, and they will actually manage these funds for you, but will allow you to transact on them as if they were yours, right? So so for them, you'll have a username and password. You'll have support, right? If you lost something, if you lost your password, you can call them up and say, hey, I lost my password. Can I get back in to seeing my funds and deal with them? And they will say, sure, give us some, ID or anything of that sort to do some identification, and they will support you. A non-custodial wallet, which is a wallet that you basically manage, right? Doesn't necessarily have a company behind it. You are the owner of all the funds inside. no one is able to ever touch it other than you, or if you give someone permission, obviously, or give them your private key, or reveal all your secrets, and you basically manage it by yourself, and you own it. You own the responsibility. If you lose the private key and cannot recover it, then you lost it forever and all the funds with it. But you own it, so you can do whatever you want with it. No one will tell you. You don't have to go. Custodians will most probably require you to identify to them who you are. One reason is that to actually be able to recover, right? Recover your password or recover any credentials that you lost by proving that you are who you said you were. But the other thing is, as I've said, is for regulatory and compliance reasons, you need to do a KYC. The company needs to do KYC and AML, so know your customer and anti-money laundering, to know that you're not a terrorist, that you're not a money launderer, right? That your funds came from a legitimate place. So they need to know who you are, where your money is from, and what is it going to be used for, right? These are custodian services. They have to know it. Otherwise, they're in trouble with the law. And a non-custodial, you don't care. It's purely programmatic. You go, you generate the seed with a private key. You can hold your funds there. No one asks you who you are, where you came from, where is this money from. It's yours, right? No one knows about it, and no one can associate that with you. So these are like
So Fireblocks would be like your clients would be this custodian companies.
Correct.
Okay. All right. So
Correct.
if I have, like, I say, I'm just set up, let me just get into this and see how it works. So I have this MetaMask account and I set up, I bought some Bitcoin, Ethereum. Now, something like MetaMask, is that a custodian? No.
It's a non-custodial solution. MetaMask is a wallet that sits on your browser extension, basically, or your mobile device if you download it on your mobile. It sits there. It sits basically in nowhere else, right? So they do give you like a nice user experience. But if you logged in once on your mobile device and recreated that wallet, then they'll just ask you for like a simple password. But if tomorrow you actually lost your device, right, they would need to reconstruct that wallet with a passphrase that you got when you first installed, when you first created the account, right? And this is like the seed. This will allow you to, this is basically a super highly private thing that is a recovery mechanism for your wallet, right? And that's why it's really advised to kind of keep it very safe. Not even take a picture of it, basically write it down, put it in a note, I don't know, stick it in your drawer or wherever you feel safe, because with that, someone can recreate the wallet and actually assume control of your funds. But basically it's a non-custodial. No one, if you lost those two, you have no one to talk to, you have no one to call to say, I lost these, can you please recover my wallet? No. You don't have anyone from the other side. It's purely code driven. No one stands behind it. You don't have support or anything of that sort. As opposed to open a custodian wallet on Coinbase or Binance or Kraken or others. If you lost everything, you will go to a very rigorous identity proof process, and they'll help you recover your account.
Those are non-custodial solutions.
Those who Coinbase are custodial solution. They are custodial. When you say, it's a little bit tricky. Non-custodial means like you are your own. They are a custodial solution, right? They are a custodian.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, that's a great topic, and it brings up this clarification. Like maybe if you have a spectrum where the original promise of Bitcoin and crypto is completely non-custodial. Everyone be your own bank. I think that was a catchphrase in very early days. And that would be on the far right of non-custodial, which includes wallets like MetaMask. And then you might have medium custodial solutions. And I'd be interested if Omer thinks he thinks of Fireblocks as being on the spectrum, which is like a medium custodial, where it enables custodial clients. It maintains one of the shards, out of 3 for transactions to happen. And then you have fully custodial solutions, which, include Coinbase and Binance and Kraken,
Correct.
and then even traditional custodians like Bank of America and Chase Bank.
Exactly. I agree. I think Zengo tried to do like a hybrid custodial solution, right? They would keep your shards, keep like a shard, and you would keep a shard, and I think that Zengo was a little bit like that, which makes sense for it. But you have to understand, I think, Paul, this is kind of another topic that would be interesting, is how does that look in the DAO space, like in the DAO space, right? It's a little bit different because custodial and DAOs don't really go together unless like these custodians are really aimed towards DAOs. I don't know. Gnosis Safe are doing a pretty nice job in that space. I think they're probably the only ones that cater DAOs with their multi-sig solution. But it's a really interesting, and also begs a question, which I talk a little bit in the presentation, which is how does custody look in the Web3 space, right? Where we all want that ownership over our data, but maybe we want the ease of use without being limited on the actions that we actually want to take, right? This is kind of where the world of custodians are now, specifically custodians that deal with consumers. How do they bridge that gap, right? Because let's take a very hip and very kind of hyped topic of NFTs, right? So you have your Bored Ape, and the thing to what really I'm not going to discuss pricing. I'm not going to discuss the rates and like the bubble that's going on, if there's a bubble or whatever. But you have to one thing that's easily missed in this NFT craze from people looking from the outside is that these NFTs are not only art. They're not only digital pieces, they're actually a key and some sort of an identity into a very specific ecosystem, right? So if you know the Bored Ape Yacht Club, it's a club and it sounds funny, but they have their own, they have their own means of communication. So, if you go into their Discord plugin will actually scan, you'll have to connect your wallet to it for it to see that you have a Bored Ape, and then it will open up a different means of communication with the community that has those apes. And if you have that ape, you might get an airdrop of a ticket that will allow you entry to an event, a physical event that they do, right? So it's not only that really nice JPEG or PNG that's attached to it is actually a key to a community, right? And by the way, this relates to what I said earlier about Web3 being an identity. Think if an NFT was your driver's license inside your crypto wallet, right? So this would also allow you access to certain actions because you have that. So in that space, right? How if I keep all my funds inside a custodian, he will, like, the custodian would still need to allow me to connect my wallet into all these types of communities, into all these types of actions, right? So But traditionally, what a custodian does is he puts everything in a big pile. Inside is like a, in a one big wallet or a series of wallets that are what we call an omnibus, which they're just the balance sheet of all that custodian, and he keeps up a private ledger and says, you know what, Paul has 200 of these, 10 of these, 5 of these, right? Paul doesn't actually need to have that in a separate wallet. So basically, these custodians, they're now in a very I wouldn't say existential, but really deep thought on how they tackle Web3. Well, all their users need actual ownership over their digital assets, but they and being able to connect it, but their entire system is not really adjusted to that. Their system is adjusted to, we'll keep everything in a big pile. Don't worry, we know how to take care and write down who owns what. But it's all here in one big pile. And now everything needs to be segregated into every user's wallet in order for that user to later go on and use that wallet that is still in custody and managed by that company to transact and do what he wants on Web3, on this like cutting edge, new frontier. So it's really interesting to see how these big companies think of it, and they are starting to think about it, mainly now with NFTs, but later on, it's just a symptom to what's coming in like 5 to 10 years.
Hey, Omar, can I ask about that? So
Sure.
is why, like I bought this Bitcoin or Ethereum, whatever it was, through Coinbase,
Yes.
and then they act with, say, Decentraland, I have to transfer the Bitcoin
Exactly.
from my
Exactly.
meta. That's why.
Exactly. You have to own it. You have to withdraw that. And why is that? Okay, so you have to understand how Coinbase does things, right? It's not very different than how brokers do things, right? Or how like a Robinhood does things, right? So they have to understand. And that, by the way, it makes perfect sense what I'm about to say, because it's really operationally effective. When you buy let's say you bought Ethereum on Coinbase, right? So you created an account, you went through this all KYC and AML process, which for them is like, tell us your name, take a selfie, send us your driver's license, blah, 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 and things like that, right? And then they basically created a database entry, right? It's called Amari. And then Amari said, guys, I want to buy, an ETH, right? 1 ETH. And then they say, okay, pay us 25, what's 31? What's the 3,100? What is the $3,100, right? For that ETH. So you pulled up your credit card, you gave them the credit card, and they took $3,100 off your credit card. And then all they did is say, you know what? All these mountains of ETH that we currently own, one of them belongs to Amari. But if you looked on the blockchain, nothing happened. It's an off-chain event. It didn't affect the blockchain at any single point. They just allocated one of their pre-owned ETH to you, right? In their own centralized database. Only when you said, hey guys, remember that ETH I bought, I'm going to withdraw that to my own wallet. Here's the address, transfer that to me. Only then there was an on-chain event where they had to actually send you that ETH to your wallet. Only then something happened on-chain, right? Also, when you do trading on a Coinbase, right? When you trade, 1 ETH to 3,000 USDC, they don't really do anything on-chain. They just say, you know what, that ETH that you had, it's not yours anymore, according to our database, but instead you got 3,000 other coins or other tokens, right? And they were assigned to you. Nothing happened on-chain. And that makes sense, right? Because if they had to facilitate on-chain transactions for every person that came in and bought the ETH and did the trade, the fees on those blockchains would have just killed them, right? It's like so expensive to actually trade on chain. It's really, really expensive. And they can do the same being a custodian. They can do the same, and being licensed, they can just imitate the rates that are currently going on chain and give you that rate and just do an internal reallocation of the funds. That's it, right? So this is how they work.
Yeah,
So
I think it's
actions on my at the payout.
I can interrupt. Sorry, if I can interrupt briefly.
Yeah.
I want to just frame the discussion. Yeah, that was a great explanation. I think it touched briefly, which we'll probably come back to, about NFTs and ownership. And I know, like, when there are forks, like Coinbase, like Bitcoin fork between Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash in around 2017 or 2018, and there were customers who sort of felt like they deserved their equivalent assets on the fork Bitcoin Cash, but Coinbase held them, and customers had to threaten to sue before Coinbase sort of like backed up and agreed to sort of grant the equivalent of this new asset to its customers.
Right.
But custodians, and this is actually how I spent most of the pandemic studying Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett, most of his wealth came because he saw that insurance companies held float. He held other people's money, OPM, and he was able to invest it. And not everyone is a genius in picking companies to invest in as he does, but these custodial companies, they're holding your money, and they are by law required to hold some amount in reserve, but they're also free to invest it as they see fit. So they're getting some advantage. The banks are not holding your money out of the goodness of their hearts. Another Warren Buffett joke is that during a bank robbery, the bankers are the ones who should be wearing the masks. Or there's like there's a Mr. Robot quote, like if you give a man a gun, he can rob a bank, but if you give a man a bank, he can rob the world. Banks are smart, and custodians are smart, and so that is another part of the dynamic that is going on as well. And then also, to back up to the Discord for Board 8 Yacht Club, I was at ETH Denver, which is this Ethereum conference in Denver recently. I was actually hoping to see you there, Omer, but it may be in some ways too community hacker oriented for big companies. So it's mostly for people to socialize, but there's a lot of Bored Apes there, people talking about Bored Apes and NFTs. And there are Discords. We are writing a Discord bot right now. So Amari and some other members of our meetup that are learning to code are working on a bot for Discord. And it does, very simple things like when we're sad, if we say a quote that has a sad sentiment, it cheers us up by giving us this very like wise quote from Zen Quotes API or something. So it's kind of like a cool human experience, but everything you're talking about, like enabling secret channels or having invites to special events that you, through ownership of an NFT, or to even interact, like link your Ethereum address to your account on Discord and being able to transact. And most people understand how to chat. And so if you're able to transfer assets to your friends just by chatting with them, and you have the password to your Discord account, but it is also giving you access to spend these assets, all that is enabled through bots and code, which in some sense is also centralized, right? Like if the platform that's running the bot goes down, or if your laptop's not online, it doesn't work. And so there's this whole social aspect where people know it's not completely decentralized, it's not completely unstoppable, but they still value it. And this NFT, it's not just beautiful art. Like we've always had art forever. We've had, the Mona Lisa and all of Michelangelo's paintings before there were NFTs, but now people impute this special meaning on top of it. Like, well, I'm paying for this scarcity or this ownership or this social status or this ability to go to this event, which, and when I transfer it to someone, sure, you have to pay attention to this blockchain, but it is also scarce. I can only do it once. Now this other person has control over it, like a title to a house. And it's just whether you think other people will pay attention or respect this possibly speculative market. So anyway, I just see like a way of tying a bunch of different things together, also with memes and mindshare people's minds. So you may know that the meme stocks, like people on Reddit are pumping up GameStop and AMC and all these other stocks, completely not based on earnings, not based on any kind of reality, but because of what other people are doing and because of its effect on these big hedge funds, which have like these short positions. So they're like short squeezing, they're kind of like sticking it to the billionaires as well. So there's all this meaning that people are imputing on top of it. And then even to touch briefly on like Elon Musk and his ability to sway people's memes. There are people who invest in Tesla purely because they think they're investing in SpaceX or just in anything Elon Musk related, completely unrelated to Tesla's earnings, even though Tesla is, I think it's a great company, and I think the car is a good product as well. And so all this is mixed in, all this irrational human behavior is still mixed in with something that's very cut and dried, like banking and custodial wallets. So that's all I wanted to say. Sorry to interrupt, Mari. I think you had another question too.
No, that's it. I think we can get back to our main line. That helped me a lot, though. It gives me some answers to go follow up with some other answers now. Yeah.
By the way, I'm on the Slack channel. I'm on the Slack server. So if you want to hit me up, I'm there.
Yeah. Okay. The crypto coin. The channel is called Crypto Coins, and he is Nirom, Nirom. And it's bridged. So the Discord is bridged to Slack. It's also bridged to several other, like Matrix, which is the decentralized chat of the world. But they're all bridged there. And if you're interested, I can help put you in touch through other means. But definitely, I favor public discourse. More people learn that way. It's kind of the Web3 of chat. So if you have a question and you don't mind asking in public, everyone can learn from it, and then you might, in the best case, make a friend, because that's how Omer and I met, because I posted publicly online through GitHub.
Could you say that again, how to find that? Because I missed it, went past me.
The channel is called Crypto Coins. So in the Discord that you're at, there's a channel called Crypto Coins, and that is bridged to Slack and Matrix and a few other places. But the two of you can meet publicly there, and then if you like, you can exchange other contact info, or I can help facilitate some kind of direct message DM connection afterwards.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Yeah.
I see that.
Paul, can you give me sharing rights, privileges? I don't know. You can.
Yes, that is definitely within my intention.
Okay. Where there's a will, there's a way.
That's true. Whether I can figure out
now is just a matter of time.
settings. That's right. Okay. Try now, please.
Yep. Okay. So wait. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay.
Hey,
cool.
I have a quick question before you get started.
Sure.
Paul, I'm on my phone because I answered this alert that popped up with the link, but I'm trying to get it on my computer so I can see the screen better. But I'm in the Discord. I don't see where. Did you post that link in Discord? Is that where I got it from to get to the Zoom?
Yeah, the link to the Zoom is in the channel Crypto Coins, and I know there are a lot of channels on the Discord, but if you scroll up to the list of text channels, it's not in the group of channels called Coding. That's related to like our meetup Detroit Code with Friends. It's another group of channels. There are channels called like Arcology, Crypto Coins, and they're also text channels. And so that's the one that contains the Zoom link. So, and I agree. I think I'm going to change to my laptop as well, because the phone has some limitations. But in any case, while you're doing that, and I can DM with you on Discord to help, let's let Omer continue with the share, because I think other people are not necessarily interested with our technical problems. So please continue, Omer, and I'll work with you separately, Amari.
Sure.
I have a question, Paul. This is David. Unfortunately, I am on the road. I'm helping a relative with a move. So I just wanted to ask how the content being shared is going to be decided. Because I'm very interested.
I sent Paul the presentation. So Paul, you can share it after or during or whatever, so that people have that presentation.
Yeah, I am recording this on Zoom. I'll upload it to YouTube and post it in the channel and also in the meetup. You know, the modern reality of social media is that you are forced in some ways to be on 20 different platforms. And it would be nice if everyone all settled on one, but then you'd be giving that one company sort of like all this custodial power over your social connections as well, which yeah, so for now it's on, I'll post it on all the platforms, meetup, Discord, just bridged with Slack. And yeah, I think that's how you found me, David, is through meetup. So that's how we'll stay in touch there. And yeah, without further ado, Omer, please let's see your presentation.
Okay, so I skipped my intro. We're gonna talk about something that's very near and dear. I'm a gamer myself, and I'm also a blockchain enthusiast. So I'm dealing now within Fireblocks with what's currently called as GameFi, although I've heard from some very important people in this space that they don't like the name GameFi. I don't know why, but basically it's gaming and decentralized finance. This is like the term GameFi, and I want to. I don't know if you know, but we'll talk a little bit. The gaming market is $180 billion year industry. I think if you take movies like cinemas and music, they amount to something like $60 billion year. So so again, this is, the gaming industry is just monstrous in its magnitude. And here you can see a breakdown. It's not very interesting and it's not very relevant. Just a big number is pretty relevant. Now, let's talk a little bit about how games are represented on blockchain in terms of statistics. Then we see a movement, right? This is 2021, and these are numbers that compare UAWs is unique active wallets, right? And their percentage of and the percentage from DeFi and gaming. And we see something very interesting. While DeFi is like a very hyped and buzzed term, somewhere between July and August, it kind of flipped, and more wallets are being actively used towards blockchain gaming than wallets that are used on DeFi, on decentralized finance. And obviously, again, this doesn't necessarily mean about volume. The DeFi volume is much higher. You have a lot of like whales doing a lot of activity. But then in terms of how popular this is, then you have basically now more wallets, a lot more wallets that deal with that do gaming as opposed to DeFi. So just to give you a sense of how interesting this is even within the blockchain space, the crypto space. So yeah, this is very confusing. And so I don't know how many of you are into gaming, but this is kind of a very rough draft of how the blockchain gaming industry looks like. So it identifies a few key players. So game developers, obviously, the ones that are in charge of developing the games, the gamers themselves, the one who actually play it, and the guilds in red. I'm gonna touch briefly on those. Regarding the rest, maybe in secondary markets, which are interesting, but let's start. The governance, staking, and the community treasury are interesting, but not for the sake of this presentation. So how does a regular game look like? I don't know how many of you played, but let's say you have a game, you start a new character, you come into the world, and you start doing assignments, quests, in order to get get experience, to get money inside the game. So the game like has gold or silver or anything of that sort that you can go to your local shop and buy with it in the game, right? Not really your local shop. But and then these gamers basically play the game because it's nice, because they like it, because they have some adrenaline rush when they play it, and they accumulate all types of things. If it's like their character is leveling up, they have more items, they get gear that is better, and so on and so forth. In the blockchain space, what's happening is interesting, because each one of these, an item is basically an NFT. The coins in the game are actually tokens on the blockchain, and you mimic all this, all these regular game mechanics on chain, on the blockchain, right? So a user comes in, he plays, his character gets leveled up, but his character is an NFT. He can later go on and sell that NFT on a secondary market and sell, his basically game progress or his earnings. He can trade them on the secondary market, which is very interesting. So that goes between the game developers and the gamers. So as a gamer, and this is basically the reason why you might hear gaming referred to as play to earn. Blockchain gaming or GameFi is play to earn, because you can actually play the game and earn money. The way you earn money is you play the game, you get some sort of rewards, and you can later on sell those rewards on secondary market. Now, what's interesting is that we have another player called a guild. A guild will actually hire players to play the game and will offer them some sort of rewards for them appreciating the in-game NFTs or the in-game items, or get more items.
And by appreciating, I mean, you mean increasing the value of, not just
exactly increasing the value, right?
The games, which
they
do.
They don't clap or don't necessarily clap and appreciate, but they appreciate in value, right? So so the more you play, the higher level, and these assets basically appreciate. So let's take a concrete example. The most played game in the blockchain space is called Axie Infinity, and this is a very simple game, I would say. You have these little animals called axies. So one is Axie, plural are axies. These are like cute characters that you actually go on, and these are like Pokemons. You fight with them, right? And you can fight the computer, you can fight other players, but then you go on these quests, and each of these axes is an NFT. And once they level up, they're worth more, and they can be sold in the Axie marketplace. So then you have companies that buy these axes. They're expensive, right? They're crazy expensive. If a retail PC game or a console game today is around $60, and you can actually wait for it to be on sale and buy it for $5 and $10 and $15, one Axie today, I haven't checked in a while, but I think the cheapest one is about $55, $60, and you need 3 of those to start playing, right? So you need to pay somewhere between $150 and $180 just to start playing the game, right? And so it's not very a very equal opportunity. So it was at first, right, when it costs like a few cents, but now it's crazy expensive. So you have these gaming guilds actually buying Axies and leasing them to gamers to actually play with them, so they will increase in value, and then these guilds sell those NFTs. and pay a small cut to the players. So they actually need only some people who have time to play those. Sadly, currently it's like a lot of like third world countries. So Bangladesh and things like, and someone plays out of like a village where the alternative is like very, very low income, and these guilds pay pretty nicely. I wouldn't say on Western standards. So they lease or they hire these. They call them scholars to play with these. But that's another. When you look, I'm leaving ethics aside. That's another like big player in this new gaming industry. Does that make sense in any way, or was I talking gibberish like for the past 20 minutes?
No, I think it was good. How's it going with everyone else? Is this?
I see Mari laughing. He's smiling. Wait,
Well, I think is it okay if we interrupt with questions, Omer?
Yeah, sure. Feel free.
Okay, well, I'll get started. And although Omer and I are great friends, you would never know it by the questions that I'm about to ask him. But there is skepticism involved. This is not directed towards himself or Fireblocks.
No. Go ahead.
But NFTs are strongly hyped, and I know there are people who are immediately, if they hear 100%. There are people, and I know you're listening to this recording right now, who will immediately like leave the chat and unsubscribe the minute you heard the term NFT, and you think it's all a scam. So I sympathize with the speculation. I sympathize with the suspicion about all the speculation around it. The criticism is Axie Infinity is not fun to play, and in fact, most blockchain games are not fun to play. Have you heard this criticism, and what do you think about it?
So this is an excellent question. Hold on, let me just say. This is like a sneak preview into like the next 2 slides. Is that one of the challenges is to actually build something that's entertaining and not things that are just self-feeding and overhyped, right? So I'm a gamer, as I've said. For me, this is one of the major criticisms about this space, and I think so. I deal with this a lot on the, I would say, on the industry level, and almost everyone knows it, right? I mean, it's not very entertaining. These games are not really games, right? But I think what we were seeing up until now, and I can guarantee you, I cannot disclose too much, but I can guarantee you that it's changing. Is what we saw right now is like, so Axie comes from Sky Mavis, right? And they are the creators of CryptoKitties, right? You remember CryptoKittens? Back in 2018, they kind of congested Ethereum for like, I think 2-3 weeks, so what we're seeing is crypto first gaming, right? They come from companies that have a good set of gaming expertise, but they're really very oriented around crypto, around blockchain technologies, right? So and they're the first ones. So these games heavily rely on the bring your own wallet, non-custodial, right? These are all like, they need that to exist, right? So they attract a very certain type of gamers, a certain type of users. So they're very well adjusted to their target audience. So it's not if you had the perfect game, but you still said, oh, you know what? You just sign up for MetaMask, did what Amari did, right? Go to Coinbase, swipe your card, get some ETH, transfer that ETH into MetaMask, connect with your MetaMask to the game, and start and buy an NFT in order to play that game. Even if it's an amazing game and it's aimed for the mass market, it wouldn't succeed, right? I mean, it's a tedious, very hard process for kind of the average gamer. And I think these games are very well oriented to their target audience and to the target industry. And what we'll start seeing is more traditional gaming companies, which I call gaming first companies, actually build games with blockchain technologies embedded inside them, right? So not necessarily, and quite frankly, I don't know what's going to be that game that succeed. My feeling is that within the span of 1 to 2 years, there will be this game where we would play and will be on chain. They say, oh, you know what? This is genius. It's a really nice and really sophisticated way of using that technology to the advantage of the player and to the advantage of the game. But to tell you now what that's going to look like and what that game is going to be, I don't know. If I knew, I'd go and build it, right? So, but I think that it's another technology that enables other types of transactions and other type of interactions between two parties. And if you can harness that into a gaming experience, that would be a win, right? And I believe that will come. But I totally share. I don't play blockchain games for fun myself. I stick to like the old ones, but I think we're gonna see a breakthrough in the next 1 to 2 years, if that makes sense, what I said.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. I mean, one thing I keep in mind is that even when I was at East Denver, and even though I'm a fan of decentralizing and distributed ledger and free technologies, I know that 90% of these projects will not be here in 2 years, or maybe even 1 year. And so, you know, most people say, how can you take this industry seriously like that? And, you know, there's a mental framework like all the previous movements like Web 1 and Web 2 is that we may be in a bubble. We may not know where in the bubble we are in, but it could be in the phase where people are very excited. There are a seed of good ideas, but we don't know which one is going to be, you know, the Amazon or the eBay of Web3, and which one is going to be the pets.com. And even the pets.com, you know, now we have this startup called Chewy, which actually I think is like a very successful company selling pet supplies online. And that pets.com was like too early, or they didn't do it right. And so it could be that gaming, GameFi, and using a distributed ledger to handle gaming assets will be really compelling. But the company that is going to do it in the winning way hasn't happened yet, or is happening right now, and we just don't know.
Right. I agree with you. Again, I don't know. I just believe that we're gonna have some breakthrough. It makes sense to me, like in a very, very general way, like in a very like macro level. It makes sense to me that, and I really believe that gaming would be like a huge boost to adopting Web3 technologies. That's what I think. Like bigger picture, it's not like gaming would be, you know, it's not like, I'm not saying that gaming is going to be the most, I don't know, like the epicenter of Web3 usage, right? What I'm saying is that I think gaming can push, and does it, by the way. It converts a lot of like non-crypto into crypto, but it can be like one of the biggest boosts that we'll see in adopting this technology. That's what I think. Like it has, at least it has the potential to do that, right? I'm not, I can't tell the future.
Yeah, and as always, none of this is, you know, financial or investment advice. Everyone, please do your own research. And
yeah, I'm the last one to give financial advice. I'm not giving financial advice. It's an anti-advice if you want to be practical. No, I'm kidding. Okay, so yeah, this is like very. I just wanted to paint a picture of what like a gaming a gaming hierarchy looks like, and who are the like main players within this. Paul, you had another question that you wanted to.
Well, I did, and let me know if you're going to get to it, because it may be preempting one of your future slides. Is how is GameFi related to Fireblocks' main business model? Because people who are very conservative financially, even if they work in traditional finance industries, if they heard about what Fireblocks does in the main, which is the wallets, semi-custodial wallets, if you want to use that term, most of them would say like, oh yeah, that sounds like a solid business model. And then we move on to GameFi, right? And they're like, well, what the fuck is this? Pardon my French. So what's the connection?
Well, you'd be surprised that some of this comes from our investors, but yeah, I mean, we have some very, very forward-thinking investors. But yeah, I'll get to that. So we talked about this, right? Where before, about owning your digital assets, about owning your digital self, your digital data, everything that is digital in the Web3 space is part of you. So I'll skip that. I mean, if you're watching this, then go back to what I said earlier. So as Paul asked, so what are the challenges? And when I'm saying challenges for mass adoption, I'm basically saying if we solve these issues, then the potential to actually boost the Web3 technology will be very, I'd say, in high, will have a very high chance of happening. So the first is actually building games that are appealing to the mass market, that are entertaining, that people would like to play it regardless of how much money they earn from it, right? So to the Axie point, it basically, I mean, eventually you don't have this person that wants to buy the best Axie because he wants to play with it. Maybe it's bragging rights, right? But I think I share Paul's sentiment, or the sentiment that he conveyed, is that no one really still plays these games just to play the game. So I think that needs to change. And as I've said, I believe that's coming with the gaming first companies that will build these games. Second is creating a seamless experience for gamers, right? And that's another big challenge. So what I said earlier about what is the onboarding process look like? It cannot be, hey, you know what? Create a MetaMask account, then go to Coinbase, buy that ETH, withdraw that to your MetaMask account, and then I don't know, go to that game, use a bridge, blah blah blah. All these types of things that are very, very cumbersome and are very sophisticated. That needs to go away, right? As a gamer, if you care, let's say if number one is done, and there is a game that people that people want to play, they just want to play the game. They don't want to go through all these hoops to get to play the game, right? They just want a seamless experience. And if that means, creating an account, using a custodian, swiping your credit card, getting that in-game loot or in-game items, and making that as close as possible to what it is today, that's another big challenge, because behind the scenes, it requires a lot of infrastructure. Hint, hint to what Fireblocks wants to do, and allow these companies to onboard their player base and their users again in a seamless way as possible. And that requires the blockchain infrastructure, that requires custodian solutions, that require payments solution, right? Fireblocks recently acquired First Digital Payment, another crypto payment company based in Israel. So all these types of things, all this industry, what it needs is basically within the capabilities of Fireblocks, right? So you asked Paul, how do we connect to it? We want to create that infrastructure that will allow companies to seamlessly onboard their users, create their in-game assets, transfer those assets, all by creating a very seamless experience for those users. Make sense?
Great, thank you. So you want to be just like you're a platform for custodial platforms. You also want to be the platform for these game first companies, also to be possibly custodians of their gamers' assets.
Yeah, if you think about it, their gamers would own NFTs and tokens, right? So in a way, it's pretty similar to how Revolut treats their clients, right? So because they also own coins and tokens and maybe NFTs, right? So it makes sense, right? It's the kind of, from a very, very high level, it's kind of like the same infrastructure, right? So it makes sense for us to start dealing with that space.
Yeah.
And I think the third thing, which is a little bit more technical, but we have to have smart contract maturity, right, and security. We hear too much, and this is by the way comes from the DeFi space, as well as the GameFi space, right? So smart contracts are great, really amazing technology. Still, one of the main weak points when it comes to transacting on digital assets. Like if you compare that to transfers, right? If you want to transfer something on blockchain, it's a very, right, let's say all the parameters are right and you didn't get the destination address wrong, it's pretty secure, pretty safe. It's I think blockchain proved that. Smart contracts, however, while I would say are pretty good, still not perfect. And when it comes to mass adoption, we need to kind of remove any doubt that funds will be lost without any means to reclaim them. So I think we still have some way to go. I believe we're on the right track. There are a lot of companies dealing with like smart contract security, which is great. But again, it's both wonderful and worrisome at the same time. Just to give you like a little bit of thought from my end, the fact that you can write a financial transaction with code and it will run like the next day is amazing. Like you don't have that in the traditional space. If you wanted to write a new if you wanted to write a new way to transfer US dollars from one point to the next, it will take you years to get like the clearance and legal clearing, compliance and everything. Probably the best way is to actually on-ramp into USDC, write an Ethereum smart contract, and then off-ramp that to USDs, right? I mean, that's how amazing smart contracts are, because you can actually write code that will have a financial, it's like a financial tool. You cannot do that anywhere else, unless I'm mistaken. But from what I know, it's like you cannot do that, not on the like mass market level. So that's why it's wonderful, which is the same exact reason why it's also very worrying, because anyone can write that code and you have thousands of those that you want to interact with, and you don't have the time to actually go through it one by one and verify that the code actually works, because it's decentralized. It's not like you can call up that developer or the guy who hired that developer and say, guys, you made a mistake, there's a bug and all my money is lost, can you please give it back to me? No one is on, you don't have even a phone number to call, right? So that's why it's wonderful and worrying at the same time. And we're maturing, but it needs to be more mature.
Yeah, I mean, that ties together a lot of the beginning topics we talked about, as well as about custodial versus non-custodial wallets, onboarding new people, or what is a way to think about this space? What are the advantages? What is all the hype or the excitement about? Like, what is the seed of a good idea beneath all the hype? And I want to be respectful of people's time, especially Omer. We've been at it for almost 2 hours now, which is the scheduled time. I'm happy to stay on as long as people want to, because I know this is just the tip of the iceberg. You know, we could have many more sessions about this, and I hope we do. I would love to invite Omer back. Everyone, if you would like to see Omer back or have other questions, please hit me up afterwards. But let's pause now. Let's give a big round of applause to our special guest, and then keep going.
Thank you, Omer. Thank you so much.
Sure.
So if anyone has to leave, we thank you for joining us. I sent a link in the chat for the Discord server. So if you want to keep in touch and hear about future meetups, we hope to have other great guests in discussion, including Omer back. And yeah, I mean, and this time I know there were other things like working in the Web3 industry. How do you apply for a job? You know, what sorts of jobs are there?
I have a slide about that.
Yes. Yeah. So let's, if anyone, let's,
we are hiring everything. So so hit us up at fireblocks.com/careers. And it goes by like a country, city, whatever. So we have offices in Tel Aviv, obviously, New York, Boston, Singapore, I think Germany, England. Yeah, it's too much. But yeah, hit us up. If you see anything that you like, please DM me on Slack or wherever. And I'll take a look and do what I can.
Thank you, Omer. So yeah, with that, I think we've concluded this discussion. I'll post all of these links, including the recording when it's done, onto the Discord, the meetup, and all the related chats, and on YouTube as well. Yeah, and Omer, I mean, it's probably midnight or past midnight.
It is. Yeah. It is midnight. But
okay. Thank you so much for being with us, and
thank you guys.
To your family for lending you to us for this time. And yeah, we'll see you online, and we'll keep it going.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Omer.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Have a great day.
Amazing.